The ferry's front end strikes and pierces the tanker. The impact sends oil splashing over the water and across the ferry's deck. A towering fireball erupts between the two ships like a volcano exploding on black water. In 1967, Camel Laird of Birkenhead in the UK built a car and passenger ferry called Koningin Juliana, also known as Queen Juliana. A Dutch company used it to run the route between Harwich and Hook of Holland. The ferry measured 131 meters long and 20.5 meters wide. It weighed 6,682 tons and could reach speeds up to 21 knots. In September 1985, the ferry was sold to Italy's Novama Lines, which ran routes between France, Italy, and their nearby islands. Novama Lines later changed its name to Moby Lines, and the ferry became known as Moby Prince. It moved to its new home port of Livorno, Italy, where it served the regular route between Livorno and Olbia. The oil tanker Agip Abruzzo was built in 1976 at Italcantieri in Trieste. It measured 330 meters long and just over 50 meters wide. It could carry 253,000 tons of oil and traveled at 16 knots. In 1987, responding to market needs, the tanker was shortened to 267 meters, which reduced its loading capacity to 149,000 tons of oil. On the 9th of April 1991, Agip Abruzzo arrives in Livorno from Egypt. The tanker is owned by Internazionale Idrocarburi, or ENI, which means National Hydrocarbons Authority in Italian, a major Italian oil and gas company. It has 82,000 tons of Iranian light crude oil in its tanks. The port of Livorno, called Leghorn in English, is Tuscany's main port and one of Italy's most important ports for both passengers and cargo. The port's main area is called the Florence Basin. 3 breakwaters protect the entrance. The Veglia Dam guards the southern entrance. The Curvilinia Dam and Diga della Meloria form one long breakwater to the west, and the Diga del Marzocca sits to the northwest. Ships enter and leave through the southern entrance between the south end of the Curvilinia Dam and the west end of the Veglia Dam. The channel is about 190 meters wide and 15 meters deep. Between the Florence Basin exit and the southern entrance stands Livorno's Maritime warning tower. The tower has a commanding view that connects ships with terminals and port operators. It records when boats arrive and leave, watches port maneuvers, monitors weather conditions, and keeps vessel traffic informed. On the 10th of April, after a 24-hour stop, Moby Prince prepares for its regular 7-hour trip, leaving the port of Livorno and heading back to Olbia in Sardinia. The weather is clear, and 75 passengers join the ferry's 66 crew members, well below the ship's capacity of 1,200 people. At 21:55, just before departure, the harbour pilot boards Moby Prince. Moby Prince's captain, Ugo Cessa, a long-standing captain known for being precise and professional, hands over control to the pilot, who will guide the ship out of port. A harbour pilot always escorts vessels like ferries in and out of port because they know the local waters, currents, and sea floor. At 22:03, the ferry's moorings are released and it maneuvers out of port. As it leaves the port entrance, it passes another vessel coming in. The Maritime warning tower watches and monitors the radio communications between the two crossing vessels to make sure everything happens safely. The ferry heads south toward the passage between the Veglia Dam and Curvilinia Dam. On the southern side of the Veglia Dam, outside the port near the harbour entrance, several ships sit at anchor. Among them are 2 tankers owned by ENI. The Agip Napoli and Agip Abruzzo. There are also 2 of 5 US merchant ships from nearby Camp Darby anchored in the area, Gallant II and Cape Breton. Camp Darby is a US military complex that serves as the main supply hub for the US Army's Southern European Task Force, supporting Gulf War operations. Agip Abruzzo, the last of these 4 ships, is anchored about 2.7 miles from Vegliai. It sits inside a prohibited area marked by a cone-shaped boundary. This area is a no-anchor zone because submarine cables run along the sea floor and anchoring ships could damage them. The cone also marks the passage for ships entering and leaving port, separating the channel from the anchor area. From Moby Prince's deck, the ferry officers, including the captain and pilot, can see the lights of all the anchored ships. All of Moby Prince's controls are set to manual mode, operated by qualified and experienced crew. Officers are at their stations operating the radar and radio equipment, with Captain Chessa on the bridge watching over them. The pilot hears the harbour office radio to the command. True route 195, which is the course to Olbia. As the ferry passes Vegliai Dam, the pilot leaves the bridge, gets off the vessel and transfers to a waiting pilot boat alongside Moby Prince. After passing the dam's breakwater, the ferry leaves port waters and enters harbour waters. From the port exit, the crew knows the route to Olbia well. It normally follows a heading of 220 degrees, then gradually adjusts to 191 degrees to correct course. The ferry speeds up to 18 knots, which is normal for this area near the harbour exit. The pilot on the pilot boat watches the ferry continue on its way towards its planned course. This story has been pieced together from the original accident investigation report and a second report that was created 30 years later. This is my interpretation based on evidence that was gathered during both investigations. I don't know exactly what happened on board the Moby Prince because all but one person died. It's a clear and calm evening. There's no fog, and in the harbour there's excellent visibility and calm seas. 2 people from the Italian Naval Academy near Terrazza Mascagni, southeast of the Vegliai Dam, watched the ferry leave port from their high vantage point. They also noticed something strange happening with Agip Abruzzo. The tanker is wrapped in a kind of whitish cloud or steam, but they think nothing of it and go back inside the academy. In fact, there's another vessel, and the tanker is conducting an illegal nighttime refueling operation with a smaller vessel, possibly a barge, but nobody identifies the vessel. Tank number 6 on Agip Abruzzo is open and there's a hose hanging from the side. The cargo in tank number 6 has a fuel mixture with 8% oxygen, dangerously close to the explosive range. The tanker is pointing south with its lights turned off, or it's experiencing a temporary blackout. And the whitish cloud of steam is covering the tanker, so it's possible Moby Prince has lost sight of the tanker. At 22:25, the third vessel suddenly becomes visible in Moby Prince's path. The ferry makes a sharp left turn to avoid hitting the unidentified vessel, but that turns out to be a fatal mistake. Moby Prince crashes into Agip Abruzzo's right side, hitting at a 70-degree angle. The ferry's bow strikes and pierces the tanker's number 7 tank, which is normally used for slop or dirty bilge and washing water. But on this voyage, it's filled with light crude oil. The impact tears open the oil tank, spilling its contents into the surrounding water and onto the ferry's deck. The impact locks both ships together. The captain of Agip Abruzzo tries to maneuver the tanker away from Moby Prince. Moby Prince tries to reverse with its rudder turned to the right, but its bow stays stuck in the tanker, and oil continues to pour from the damaged hull. As the 2 ships struggle to free themselves, the scraping metal sparks and ignites the oil pouring from the tanker. Flames erupt, swallowing the ferry and the surrounding water. From its unique vantage point, the Maritime warning tower sees the fire explode like a volcano. The flames spread so violently and the heat is so intense that the crew on the bridge of Moby Prince have to abandon the control room immediately. They leave the engine running at full power with the rudder turned hard to the right at a 30-degree angle. As they leave their post, they hope the ferry will break free and spiral away from the burning tanker, running in reverse so the fire and smoke on the bow should blow away from the center of the ship. chaos breaks out on board the passenger ferry. The fire and thick smoke from the bow spread rapidly and consume most of the front deck. The mustering point on the middle top deck where the life rafts are stored is too dangerous to reach. The ship's officers quickly make another emergency plan. They gather all the passengers in the deluxe hall inside the ship to wait for help. This hall has fireproof walls and doors, making it a safer alternative shelter from the disaster unfolding outside. Passengers start arriving, some with suitcases, others wearing life jackets. The crew are trained for emergencies involving fire. Some have their emergency procedure handbooks in their pockets. They place fire extinguishers around the hall to fight any fire that might break through. The radio operator can't reach the main radio in the control room because of the fire, so he uses a portable transmitter instead, trying to raise the alarm and call for help by sending distress signals over and over.
Mayday! Mayday! Moby Prince! Moby Prince! We have collided. Our vessel is engulfed in flames. We require assistance from firemen.
His voice grows more desperate.
Mate, if you do not come to our aid, we will all burn. Mayday! Mayday!
The crew and passengers wait together in the deluxe hall, expecting help to arrive soon because they're so close to the harbor. Inside, the temperature stays bearable, even as the flames consume the structure around them. The Port Authority hears the distress call over the radio, but it's weak and garbled. The operator struggles to understand what the message says. 3 minutes later, another message comes in, this time from Agip Abruzzo, saying they've been hit by a ship. They radio again 2 minutes after that. The operator decides that the distress message must be about Agip Abruzzo. In the confusion, Moby Prince's plea for help is not acknowledged. Rescue teams mobilize to help the troubled tanker. The Port Authority leads and coordinates the rescue operations, while other agencies like fire and police play supporting roles. 2 mooring men respond to the emergency on their own, without any orders from the Port Authority or any other authority. They're the first to leave from the port dock. At 22:30, a resident living on the seafront overlooking the collision sees what's happening from his terrace and starts filming the burning ships. The 2 ships are still locked together. The fire has spread to both of them and the sea between them. Visibility in the night is so good, even an Alitalia plane preparing to land at Pisa sees the fire at sea and reports it to the control tower. Inside the tanker, some crew members look out from the bridge to see what hit them. Despite the fire and thick smoke, they can make out the shape of a large boat with big windows, like a passenger ship. And then the Moby Prince breaks free and the 2 ships separate. By 22:35, the tanker's captain still hasn't given the rescuers any information about the other burning ship. First, Agip Abruzzo reports they can't see anything. A minute later, the captain reports that they collided with a small tugboat or barge, not a large passenger ferry. At 2300, a watchman on a police boat notices smoke in the distance and suggests to his commander that they head toward the vessel. But then they see 5 red flares shoot into the sky and hear the sound signals from Agip Abruzzo. Along with the emergency call on radio channel 16, the commander and watchman redirect their attention to Agip Abruzzo, and the second ship is forgotten. About 40 minutes after the collision, the tanker sends another radio message.
Sembra una bettolina quella che ci è venuta addosso. Vigili del fuoco Agip Abruzzo, noi abbiamo i Radiant Light, crude oil, però non sappiamo la bettolina che ci è venuta addosso cosa ha a bordo.
Without mentioning that the second vessel might also need rescue. More radio communications follow, but there's no coordination from the Port Authority and no awareness that they should search for the second vessel. The smoke grows thicker and spreads. Waves carry burning oil and a wall of thick smoke toward the port entrance, reducing visibility around the accident area. At 23:12, a tugboat from the Tito Neri company reaches the tanker and another one of their boats arrives 8 minutes later. At 23:22, the CP-232 patrol boat from the Port Authority arrives on the scene with the Port Authority commander on board. They stay anchored in the water between Moby Prince and Agip Abruzzo. After breaking free, Moby Prince continues running in reverse in a circle around the tanker with its engines still on. The fire spreads violently and the flames hit different parts of the ferry unevenly, sparing some areas from extreme heat. But it stays on the upper deck, and the ship's reverse motion helps preserve the outside area of the stern and the crew cabins on the lower deck. Inside the fireproof deluxe hall, even though they're protected from the heat, the ship's air conditioning system starts circulating deadly carbon monoxide and toxic gases. The passengers and crew inside slowly suffocate. The carbon monoxide binds with the hemoglobin in their red blood cells, starving their bodies of oxygen. They start to experience headaches, dizziness, and nausea. Some try to escape to the deck, but they're overcome by the intense heat radiating from the ship's hull. The people who stay inside die from suffocation. All this time, no helpful communication comes from the tanker about searching for the second ship. Hearing radio conversations about an abandoned ship on fire, the mooring men set out to search for it. At 23:26, the tugboat reports that they've spotted the second burning ship and are heading towards it, though they still haven't identified which ship it is. The tanker captain objects, saying he has 82,000 tons of crude oil and keeps insisting on the danger his cargo poses. At 23:30, another vessel sees the second burning ship. The mooring men's tugboat reaches the Moby Prince. At 23:45, the Maritime signalman asks the mooring men if they can identify the ship. They respond,
La Moby Prince, per cui ha fatto operazioni commerciali, c'è un sacco di gente sopra. Sono 50 passeggeri, mi dicono. Avvisatore, qualcuno mi deve rispondere. Cosa è successo?
The mooring men spot a lone survivor at the front left corner of the ferry. He moves to the stern and jumps into the water, where the tugboat quickly pulls him out. At the same time, Agip Abruzzo's crew also decide to abandon the tanker. The lone survivor from Moby Prince tells rescuers that he moved through the ship's rooms for over an hour, avoiding the flames along with another crew member who didn't survive. He says there are other people on board waiting to be rescued. Despite his pleas, the main rescue operation stays focused only on the oil tanker. No rescue plan is made for Moby Prince. At 2 a.m. going into the morning of the 11th of April, a tugboat manages to pull alongside the drifting ferry. Wearing ordinary work clothes and without a protective mask, a sailor climbs on board the stern and attaches a tow cable. Moby Prince is towed back to the port of Livorno. 2 days after the collision, when the heat from the fire has finally subsided, firefighters enter the ferry and find the bodies of 140 people. Between the 12th and the 17th of May, Agip Abruzzo was emptied of its remaining oil. It was towed away in October 1991 and scrapped in January 92. A judicial inquiry blamed the tragedy on fog and the reckless and negligent actions of Captain Chesa of Moby Prince. A lever in the engine room was set to autopilot, making Captain Chesa directly responsible. And the Port Authority's failures during the rescue were downplayed. In July 2021, 3 decades after the accident and mounting public outrage, the Italian Parliament formed a new commission to investigate the accident. Their findings told a very different story. The original investigation had been rushed and incomplete. Evidence was either ignored or left out. Eyewitness accounts, actual weather conditions, even video footage of the 2 burning ships. The prosecutor's office originally relied on the Port Authority's investigation, despite the fact that the Port Authority was being investigated for their failed rescue response. The Second Commission's report never specifically identified the mysterious third ship, but it mentions a former Somali fishing boat named 21 October 2, and other barges possibly involved in illegal refueling operations. The Moby Prince carcass remained in Livorno for almost 7 years until it sank at the dock in May 1998. It was refloated and taken to Turkey, where it was scrapped. to watch more disaster videos, click the link on screen now.